Hey folks, E double sharp here with a video on solar armadas. I've been hearing from a couple of people in spec that they are getting into the 40s, sometimes into the 50s, and they just haven't been doing solar armadas, which is, I guess, fine, except that you're giving up a lot of loot. So why do we do solar armadas? Uh, we do them for the loot you get from having beaten them. And if we give me a second here, let me share my Star Trek Fleet Command. So if we head over to the faction store, your Bajoran faction store is available at Ops 38. And that's really when I started doing Solar Armadas. I started doing them with my uh, Augur, my Enterprise, and I don't even remember what my Interceptor was back then. But it wasn't the D4. Uh, I even think I might have had another Explorer in there. So, some of the things I'm going to say in this video are how it works maybe best for me. But if you find yourself needing to make a substitution, all I can say is experiment. It will help you do all the things you'll need to do, uh, to build your ships faster and get your buildings upgraded quicker, be able to gain more power. But yeah, if something here, if you don't have an officer, if you don't have a ship, experiment, throw something else in and see what it does. If you want, hit me up for advice. I will say all of the advice that I'm giving in this video is based on really good advice that was given to me by people like Chief 117, Cappy, Tribbles, Kaiser, DJ, Ron Mexico, all of those people who've been doing Formation Armada since the beginning. But this is how it works best for me, so I figure I'd make a video about my journey through this and adapt it to yourself as you need to. So we start in the Bajoran store by doing the hostile exchange. For some reason, there's no view on this, but you get your directive exchange, once a day with credits. So as long as you're earning credits, you can get your uncommon directive exchange. Your uncommon directive exchange gets you uncommon loot. One of the things about the loot here is that it gets you rare directives. The other thing that it gets you is all the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Trait XP. If you can triple pull your loot chest for your ops level, this trait XP will help immensely in your away teams. I can't remember the last time I did a lead expedition away team or an Imperial or whatever they call it, Imperial strategist, I think. The colored away team that gives you Romulan credits. Very valuable. Or the form trade agreement that gives you Latinum and get about 16,000 or 11,000. It's over 10,000, whatever it is. I get Latinum every day from my form trade agreement away mission because I was able to get these trade XP and get those missions up to an 88% or a 95%, in some cases, closure rate, for the critical successes. But anyway, diplomacy tokens, credits, trade XP, ultra recruit tokens, and everyone's most needed thing in G4 and G5, quite frankly, is ship parts. These ship parts, of course, you can't buy. You have to earn them. The common ones you can buy. These you can't. So having them on hand is really important. Plus the rare directives, which help you move over to the rare loot exchange. Here, they've introduced officers. They've gotten rid of the common ship parts and moved to uncommon and rare, and these quantities are much larger. But these officer shards should not be neglected either. These are concentrated Armada officer shards. I now have my Miles maxed. I've got my Kira maxed. You're about to see my Cisco in a minute. He's also maxed. And that just comes from doing Solar Armadas pretty regularly. And by regularly, I mean once a week. It's called Solar Armada Sunday. You might hear us jammering away about it in Alliance chat. But again, more diplomacy tokens, more credits. We start to get epic directives and many more guaranteed ship parts, and we drop the uncommons, as we said. Then we get the epic loot exchange for epic armadas. We start to focus on Cisco. We get tons more ship parts. You're going to end, if you do this regularly, you'll have more ship parts than you could ever imagine. You start to get transporter patterns, which is really helpful. I think I did my Giorgio, who's an officer that gives you burning. I did Giorgio entirely on transporter patterns. More credits, more diplomacy tokens. You now have common again, but the quantities are so much higher. And the rares, which will be important as you move past tier 7 of any ship. And then there's this elite loot exchange. This currency up here, these edicts, this is really where it's at. Gives you directive of all 3 types. More things. It gives you all 3 officers and an insane number of ship parts. And we'll talk about how to maximize on the return on those in a little bit. But the other thing you get with all those credits is you start to be able to buy things like your auto defense abilities for your miners. This goes really well to annoying bots when they try to get your protected cargo. I'm sorry, your OPC. If you have auto defense on, it raises the stats of your ship, an astronomical level. And it takes a pretty powerful player to be able to overcome one of those. And if you're like lots of people in Spec and Ghost and you really love your research, that research coupled with these guys can really thwart anyone who might want to come and take your OPC loot. So that's the Bajoran faction store. And there's also there's a Borg refinery. That's the other type of solar armadas. Is the Borg armadas. Let's see, Borg tech. So the uncommon loot exchange helps with fleet commanders for sure. It's great. And then there's all sorts of research. I don't really use any of these guys, but you do get your Vidar loot and rare exchange. As we move up the ladder, you see we start to get more Vidar loot. We get epics. The officers are better. You get more stuff for your fleet commanders. And then the really useful ones, Galandar, if you're still grinding with the Talios. And then the mining officers, these are really important to get. And then the epics. There are not any elite here, but you see the fleet commander things are not to be skipped. We also start to introduce super useful officers like 5, 6, 10, and Hugh. Hugh is one of the most valuable officers in the whole game. Whenever you can get Hugh shards, you definitely want to do that. All right, so let's stop sharing this and we'll jump over to the crewing document. Now, what do you need for a an effective solo armada. Oh, I just realized that I loaded this graphic backwards. um, what do you need for an effective solo armada crew? The most effective crews early on will have ships of 3 different types. They will have the 3 statuses associated with those 3 different types of ships. We'll go over that in a second. And if you have had a chance to start being able to do formation armadas, those also really help. Actually, let me reshare the Star Trek Fleet Command window. So these 3 artifacts, the Organ Harvester gets you ISO damage when you're on a battleship and the opponent is burning. The Blade of Tkon, when you're on an interceptor, the opponent has hull breach, and the Proton Blaster when you're on an explorer with morale. If you do formation armadas, these are the ones that come most often. I don't know if you caught it, but they're maxed for me at 8% isolytic damage. This is really important as you move up. If you're not Ops 50, or if your artifact isn't level 50, if your artifact gallery is 49 or below, I'm pretty sure that you can't progress these past 14. But even at 14, these guys are pretty, or maybe it's 15. It's still, it's just 1%. You can still get 14 or 15, you get 6.3 and 7%. So there's still quite a lot of isolytic damage on the table there. So yeah, let's move over to the crewing now. So I'm going to stop that. Then I'm going to share my crewing document. So here we are. We see that I've made some notes for myself. Since I went to Syndicate, whatever it was that gave me enough below decks, or rather not below decks, gave me enough officer, what do they call those? The crewing shortcuts. The slots where you can have your crews kept. I've started using those instead of this document, but that also means this document is old for me, which is really useful because a lot of the officers that I use now did not, they had the 47,000 power range, the 94,000 power range. They were still tiers 3 and 4. So this will be more comparable to you if you're just starting out. So here we see that I made a note that this is for my Pylum. But like I said, you can totally do Solar Armadas with an Enterprise and Augur and a D4. Even if you have just 2 of those and you swap in the Saladin for the Interceptor because you don't have a D4. You swap in the, and I'm not going to pretend to know what any of the Centurion for the Enterprise. If you don't have the Enterprise, you need an Explorer. I am going to suggest not doing them without an Augur, and we'll show you why in just a second. But for right now, let's talk about crewing. This is for my Pylum. That's an Interceptor. So I put my Chakotay crew there. And the reason I did that is because my Pylum was my strongest ship with the best firing pattern. And Chakotay's captain's ability is to increase the number of shots per weapon per round. Now, why do I talk about firing pattern? Let's move over there for just a moment. I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share stfc.space. So if you don't know, stfc.space is the published sort of stats book for everything in the game. If I head over to ships and I'm going to check out, let's check out the D4 first. So if you scroll down, you see the firing pattern for the ship. It's got 2 shots per round, both of them kinetic. That might or might not figure into anybody's calculations at Ops 38 or even 42. It probably doesn't actually. But here you see it's just it's 2 shots per round, and after 15 it just repeats this pattern. If we head back and we go to the Enterprise, you'll see that this has 2 shots every round, but sometimes 4. Every other round has 4 shots. So this is a better firing pattern than the D4. And maybe, if we go back and say Saladin, let's look at Saladin, is a grade below. It just had 1 shot per round, but it also had this really powerful that shot every 4 rounds. And then what's the one we didn't give? Oh yeah, so we saw that the D4 was 2 shots, the Enterprise was 2 shots, sometimes 4 shots, but the Augur, as you look at the firing pattern, is 4 shots every round and sometimes 5. And that 5th shot, this obliterator cannon, that does a special damage if the opponent is burning. Here we go. As long as the opponent's ship is burning, the opponent hit the obliterator cannon, Augur increases repage damage by 50% cumulative. So every time this thing fires, we're adding 50% to damage, 100% to damage, 150% to damage, 200% to damage. The Augur is a tank, and so I really suggest that that is one of your first ships. So let's stop sharing the Augur. Will go back to crewing. So here we are. This is the crew I would put on my Augur. I would swap out B'Elanna Torres, because B'Elanna Torres gives you hull breach and not burning. In fact, I might even sacrifice Janeway for Georgiou, because Georgiou does give you burning. But here, this is an interceptor. This is my pylon, and it has a better firing pattern than the Augur did. So I've switched out the status. And so that's what I meant. You want 3 ships, an explorer, an interceptor, and a battleship with their corresponding statuses. Hull breach for the interceptor, so that's why B'Elanna Torres is there. At this stage, she was giving 60% chance of hull breach. It's more than half, which is good enough for any of those early Dominion armadas, the ones that give you loot for the Bajoran store. Then I have, because of the better firing pattern, I put Enti, Troy, and Odo. They're down there for the increased criticals. So every time you get a critical, they increase by X%, and that was really advantageous. And then the 4th or 5th slot on the ships, I would fill with other below deck abilities folks. Here just happened to be Beckett Mariner. More on that a little bit later. Then we go down. Here was my Valdor. This is my Explorer. My Valdor, the Explorer. Yeah, so here I chose 5, 6, and Kirk. And the reason Kirk is here is because my Harry Kim was not very powerful. At this point, he was doing a 15% chance to apply morale to the ship. Not a great hit rate, so therefore 0 advantage. But this 3rd slot here, is, it's where you would put your bridge crew status officer. So I talked about taking Janeway away from here, maybe putting Georgiou for burning if this were on a battleship. Here, I've taken away a synergy. There's no real other good Borg synergy officer that would make this seat advantageous if you took away Kirk, which is why I just left it blank and put Kirk up there. At this point, Kirk was 100% into 100% effectiveness for morale, so it was really great. Now, some of these other choices, 5, she works on ship health. Grush and Tendi have huge health scores in terms of stats, and so that really did a lot to boost her captain's ability. 6 is the most effective Armada officer in the game and synergizes with 5, so you definitely wanted to get those two together. And then I added Paris and Rutherford for their below decks abilities, which we can talk about when we go through it live. Then down to my battleship, we did Cisco, Miles, and Giorgio, because this is a battleship and she does burning. So this might be a good auger crew. Not only does Giorgio do burning, because so that's for battleship, but Miles has a chance to increase your shots per round. At this level, though, Miles is only 50% effective at increasing your shots, whereas fully synergized Chakotay, even I believe my Chakotay was level 10 at this point, this is 100% effective at increasing shots. And so that's the reason why I didn't put the Cisco crew on my pylon. But Chakotay's captain, not Chakotay, Cisco's captain ability also has a lot to do with health, which is why Hammer is here. Hammer increases the health of everybody on the ship. 10 of 11 has the single highest health of any officer in the game. We wanted some loot, and we wanted just some other below decks abilities, because they're just effective when you stack them with each other. They can't hurt. So let me stop sharing that, and we'll go and actually make some of these crews. They're mostly made on my games, so as I share the screen, we'll just look at some real life, some live shots of the ship's advantages. So we started with the Chakotay crew, which I had on my pylon, which I have loaded in Doc 2. So if we head over here to assign officers, we've got Chakotay, who with the synergy gets me 100% shots. We have 7, who increases critical damage. I'm just going to put her on the left just because this is the slot I like to leave open for consistency's sake, for if we needed to swap someone in or out. So Chakotay and 7, I think, are the ones to keep together. Janeway is talking about isolytic cascade, which can be very effective. Why am I making up words? That can be very effective depending. My Janeway, though, I just got to tier 2 level 10. So it was not 20%, it was 10%. 7 is doing a much better job up there, even though she's not as powerful as Janeway. These were the same level like a few hours ago. Then we jump down here. You see that I've since maxed BLT, but she's what gives me hull breach, which is what you want on an interceptor. We've still got Troy, 100%. We've got Troy giving plus 45 and plus 25 to critical damage for Odo, and then 115% for weapons damage. Now there's that 5th slot down there, which I didn't have, a while ago. We recently got this new Armada officer, which increases the critical hit chance when hit. So this officer is the Hugh for Armadas. Hugh doesn't work on Armadas. He just works on hostiles, which are the Reds. So I was really happy when she came along. And that is my interceptor crew. Now let's cut over to the Valdor. Oh, look, I have the wrong crew. Do I want to swap the ship or want to make it new? Let me just make it new. So we got 5 and 6. 5 talking about weaponry being irrelevant. I do want to clean all of that off so that we get good stats. So increasing deflection armor and dodge by 200%. Really lovely. And because this is a Valdor, it is an explorer, I'm going to put Kirk up here for the morale. I might, now that my Harry Kim is giving morale at 60%, I could throw Harry Kim down here. But if we look at him, his health ain't great. He's a stronger defense officer and not as effective as Kirk. And Kirk has stats. That's not what to do. Kirk has stats that are way higher. Got defense and more health. But the real health officers here are going to be Grush and Tendi. Those guys are giving me quite a lot of health. And if I go find my Tom, again, Tom should be somewhere, not necessarily saying he should be on your Explorer. Neither do I think Sam Rutherford needs to be on your Explorer, but if you just have those smatterings of your below deck abilities scattered throughout your ships, I also encourage you to experiment with that and to really dig in if you feel you'd like to. The target 6 of 11. So because 6 of 11 is 40% of total attack, this might even be a little lopsided. Maybe I want to get an attack officer down there. We say attack, we look at Gorgon, throw him in for that. The attack goes way up. He also brings up my health, which will help with her ability to but I didn't do that because I found that sometimes the below decks officers, when you mix all of their things together and use them at once, it's maybe slightly more effective than a different strategy. But I leave that to you to experiment with. And here we are now at my Newton, which is my battleship for this demo. And for Newton, we do Cisco. He is much more powerful than he was on my sheet earlier in the game because I did get him maxed. And you see alone, he gets everybody into the green. So Cisco and Miles, and we talked about defensive maneuvers, total health, but the 400% health here versus 5 of 11's lower percent advantage for health is why I have the most powerful health officers below deck here. Now we are going to keep it, or we're going to switch it back to strength so I can find a Giorgio. And then skip around to below deck abilities. So the first person we're looking for is Hammer. And you see, as we put Hammer on, he automatically adjusted everyone's numbers because Hammer increases the health of everyone on board. Now, if we sort all of our officers by health, throw in 10 and 11 there, that I think doubled the health of the ship, which is great. Go back to below deck ability and You definitely want the docks somewhere. Again, the last two slots, they're kind of free. I didn't spend too much time worrying about, oh, is this the best choice for this, or is this the best choice for that in terms of getting the below deck abilities. The only reason I'm not using Badgie is because his shards come so rarely. So all my other all my other lower decks officers are higher in tier, so greater advantage. Badgie was in the 5-year reel. Badgie was the officer I had used the most. I never sent a ship out to do anything without him being below decks because he was the only below decks officer that I had for such a long time. Um, but yeah, I've sent some, and he's uncommon, and everyone else is rare and epic. So, so those are the crews. Let's go kill something. And I guess for this demo, why don't I switch to not that switch? Why don't I switch to the D4? Is that a D4? It is a D4. Let's switch to the D4. I keep hitting that button. The auger. So maxed auger. Yes, it is maxed auger. And I was about to do it again. And my maxed enterprise. It's very Klingon looking with that red skin. So here we are. We're going to head up to Dominion space. Where are you, Dominion space? I think here you are. And I'm going to jump right to a 44. Now, those of you in the know are probably saying, well, X, why didn't you use your Defiant? I've got my Defiant. I use them on all my solo armadas. And the Defiance ability here is to increase edict rewards by such a percentage. And it says edict rewards. There's only one thing in the game called edict rewards. And those are the Jordan Elite. Those are these guys, Solar Armada Edicts. These only come from the rares and epics. But at the same time, it increases the edicts and the loot that you get. So as we do a rare, you're going to see that I'm going to swap out my D4 for my Defiant. Now, if you've just gotten your Defiant and your Ops 39 or 40, you might want to punch down a little bit for your rare and your epics. But I guarantee the Defiant and the increase in loot will keep you from needing to do that for very long. Oh, Vey, that's an annoying background. Okay, so here we are. We're going to fire away a solo uncommon. Wow, is that auger slow? I haven't used that ship in a while, man. I'd forgotten how slow she was. But I'm not going to make you sit through a minute more of that, so I'm going to use my speed up. And we'll see that we're going to beat her pretty handily. We're going to beat this Jem'Hadar flagship. I took almost no hull damage. This tells me I am punching way too low. on my solo armadas. But let's bring them all back. Let's check out my battle log. Two rounds. As your officers get bigger, these rounds will go less and less. So you see that my D4, which had my interceptor, which had more, which had the Cisco crew, is firing instead of 2 shots, it's firing 4 shots. The shield was depleted in round 1, and then we're getting, the mid round buffs from people. They don't do isolated damage. Let's actually go up to some of my shots. So you see my auger did 0.5 mil in standard damage and 0.75 mil in isolytic damage. And this is mainly what comes from the buffs on the artifacts, but also some research increases isolytic damage. You'll see that my Enterprise is doing way more, even though it has the same artifact. And the reason I wanted to point that out is because of Admiral Kirk. So I believe this is the guy. While your ships have morale, you gain critical damage. So he's now sitting at 80%. And that critical damage definitely helps out the isolytic boost and the regular boost for putting morale. That's not a substitution for the main status. So on each ship we want some kind of status that relates to the ship, but morale certainly helps. And there'll be times, as I get different ships, where I might put B'Elanna down below for hull breach because it's an interceptor, but I might also put Harry Kim there, especially if I'm working with my Pyleman punching up. All right, so now let's show you what I'm doing nowadays. And what I'm doing nowadays is the auger, the Newton, the Pilum, and I'm staying at 50 for a while, so I built a Tribune. Oh no, wait a minute. Am I using the Newton? That's 94. This is 93. So if I wanted to do the 3 ship option, I could easily throw my NSA protector in there to sort of get it for my brain. There's really no reason to keep the ships this ordered and say, well, I want 1 of each type, or I want at least 2 types. Because what I'm about to show you is that when I talked about your Explorer having morale, your that's the only one that where you need to give it to yourself. So on my today crew, which is minus a morale, an Explorer, I don't have morale up top, and we're going to see what I do. But what I did is let's do manage, assign officers on my presets. My bottom 3, Explorer, Battleship, Interceptor. What I want to do, I should rename these and put best firing pattern, some other descriptors in here, because except for morale, which the ship has to give to itself, as long as I have the ship getting burning or getting hull breach, I don't necessarily have to have those officers on those ships. So actually, what this is my Newton. It is my Newton. So I'm going to assign officers. I want Cisco on the best firing pattern. At this point, that's the Tribune. I want my next best firing pattern, which is my Newton, to have an increased number of shots. So that's why I'm going to give Cisco to there. But, yes, Giorgio is a burning officer. This is a battleship. That makes sense. But as I go over to my Tribune, which means I'm going to come and give her the Chakotay crew. I don't have anything on here doing burning. And in fact, my Neelix is still useless. He's only firing at 30% capability. But I don't need to do burning on this ship because I've got burning on my other battleship. I'm still going to have the hull breach here because my other ship is a pylum. Now, could I move B'Elanna Torres to my pylum just to keep it straight in my brain? Sure. If you need to do that, no problem. Go ahead and do it. I'm not going to mess with my presets because I'm going to have an Explorer here in a couple of months. I'm going to get my Corvus, and that will reintroduce the 3 ship types, and I'll be able to rejigger then. And so now I want to do the one I haven't done, which is the 5 crew. Now, this is one of the officers that has come out recently. This is November of 2024. I didn't need morale up here because I don't have anyone. I don't have anything getting the benefits of morale except for that extra critical. So I thought it's best to get another Armada officer up here. So this is Armada invading entities mitigation plus 100%. Totally worth it. What I am going to do, though, is go to my below deck ability, because when I made this preset, Harry Kim was only firing at 30%. Well, now he's 60. And so now I can have this ship have morale, and when this ship gets an extra critical, it will get that much more damage. Now, X, why are you doing that? Why didn't you come over here? No, to your... Why didn't you come over here and put morale down here? Since morale is on criticals and Vielle is giving me criticals. Well, you're absolutely right. I totally should have done that. So I'm going to put Harry Kim there, and I'm going to swap in below deck ability Harry. Nope, not Harry. Who did I replace Harry with? Oh, Beckett. I'm going to swap in Beckett there. And now let's go have some fun. Let's make sure I can get there. So I am going to send no, I'm sorry. I completely got off track there. I'm not going to go up to the 59s. I'm going to head down to the 54s. And I'm going to get my Defiant free and swap it in for my now you see I went from 90 some odd million to 44 some odd million. This is why I punch down with the Defiant, but when I send them all here and I hit the rares and epics, you'll see why it is advantageous. If your Defiant can't match these ships in firepower, to punch down a little bit. I'll pause the recording for the rest of the journey and talk to you in a minute. So here we are now. Look, we've got some other intrepidatious folks doing some armadas in here. We're going to hit an epic. And let's see, we should be getting 1.142 million and 1100. And I am not like Scotty in the reboot of Star Trek. I can't remember two numbers for very long with complete accuracy. I think the one he forgot was 11 in the movie, but I can remember that the one he forgot was 11. So let's run one of these bad guys. And as soon as all my ships are in there, wow, this animation is slow. And as soon as all three of my ships are in there, I'm going to speed this up. You know what? I could probably have gone up to the 57s. I didn't take any damage at all. That's great. But that's one of the reasons why you experiment and you don't overpunch early. Now, if we head over to the battle log on that dude, I should have gotten 1.142 million for my loot. I got 6.46 million. I should have gotten 1100 on my edicts. I got 13,047. And so, and I got a mega chest. So that's fun. But if you do a round of these, or, you know, for me, that's, you saw how many wings I had. That's quite a lot. If you do just one of those, you know, when you start to get low on your loot, you don't need to send your Defiant every time. In fact, it's going to be way overkill. You won't be able to punch up as hard, and you'll never spend all the loot that you get from that in a month of Sundays. So I probably could have sent my Defiant to the 57s and got even more. These days, I'm hanging out in the 59s and the 60s. I tend to die without my max fortification for my Titan A much quicker in these 60s. These 60s are, they punch up a lot harder than the 60s in this system. And this system, I haven't even been to yet because those 60s hit really hard. So I'm going to wait until I have my Corvus to try to go up there. But you know, when I do my Dominion solos, I do them here in a 59 system, a full 9 levels above my ops level, just from having those strategies. So I'm gonna end the video here and hope that you all found that informative. Hit me up with any questions, either on Discord, in Alliance chat. This has been E Double Sharp from Spec on server 22, and I hope you have a great day.